Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Deathwhite, Grey Everlasting, out June 10th on Season of Mist. This album has 11 tracks, 48 minutes in length, and this is the band's third full-length studio album. They are an American melodic doom metal band. As far as the design goes, I was happily surprised with what I got. I was expecting the album to be a little bit more stagnant, to allow the listener to sink into the experience of each and every single song, and perhaps not even being able to find your way out of that same experience. The record is actually a lot more fluid. It's not a dynamic album by no means, but it does have parameters. If you look at two lines and the path in between those lines, this album doesn't stay straight in the middle. It moves from line to line. The movement is not that big, but there is still movement nevertheless. And then once in a while you get a jolt of energy, a jolt of heaviness, a jolt of intensity that breaks the monotony, that breaks the melancholy of the record, and allows the album to have a little bit more life, to feel a little bit more fluid, to feel a little bit more engaging. Really important, so you don't lose the listener in the overall experience. You keep the listener connected, you keep the listener engaged across 11 songs and 48 minutes. As far as the soundscape goes, the beauty of the sound is really the selling point. This is an album that has a lot of layers, a lot of texture, a lot of elements that create the experience that the record offers. And the experience is well defined. The shapes of the songs are well defined. The shapes of the sound are well defined. You can feel what the keyboards are doing, what the bass is doing, the guitars, drums. Everything has a role, but their roles are not interfering with one another. I don't think you can create an album as warm, as powerful, as gray, because I don't feel like this is a dark album at all. It walks that fine line between the light and the darkness. It's right in the middle, but it walks that line extremely well and creates a warm blanket that really welcomes you into the experience, keeps you there, and in all truthfulness, you don't really want to leave it. So the soundscape is really important in order to have this sort of feel, in order to have this sort of record, having the ability to keep every single element separated, but at the same time working well with one another allows the album to be a little bit richer in sound, a little bit more warm, like I said, and definitely creating a better experience all around. These guys really know what they're doing. They know what kind of sound they need to have on a record. And this album, perhaps you see a little bit more layers. It's definitely feeling a little bit more mature sound-wise. It feels better defined than the previous records, and that is definitely a step up from where they've been before. There is not a lot of changes as far as the dynamics, the motor of what their soundscape is all about, but how it's presented, how it's put together. I feel like that's exactly where the changes came in that allows to elevate the quality of sound and therefore the quality of the record itself. As far as the elements within that sound, I love the drums, I love the guitars. I think they're so important for Deathwhite to have those two elements working well with one another, but at the same time separated, divided from one another, in order for you to feel the atmosphere, the essence, the experience, the mood that they're trying to portray. The drums on this record are powerful, but not overpowering. They create the foundation, they create the bass line, they ground this record, they connect this record, because the guitars have a little bit more movement from the heavier side to the acoustic side. This album offers a lot of different spectrums as far as the melodic sense and as far as a construction and even developing a soundscape from a guitar standpoint. So I like the fact that the drums offer a more balanced approach. They stay more grounded, they stay more connected. They're not as much of a variable within the soundscape, allowing the guitars to have that sort of movement and give that sort of movement to the overall album. You really feel like they're your guide, that they're pushing you forward, that they are the motor, the very slow burning motor that this album has. And then when it comes to the lyrical content, this is a pandemic album, but the beauty of it is that it doesn't feel like a pandemic album. It feels like an album that could be played or could be connected with any point in time. We can all gravitate to the messages, to the essence, to the atmosphere, to the mood that this record puts you in and that this record delivers. So while being a pandemic album, it definitely cannot be disconnected from that specific point in time of its creation. It's an album that's not going to be defined by it, because it's going to be true today, it's going to be true tomorrow, it's going to be true in the future. Now, vocally, phenomenal. What can I say? The clean vocals are beautiful, impactful, emotional, organic. They come across in such a beautiful tone, with such a beautiful delivery, that's impossible for you not to feel something, not to feel attached to them, not to feel what they're trying to portray, the emotions that they have. Once again, they move as the sound moves, but the movement is not incredibly dynamic. It's very controlled, It's very organized and it's very balanced, knowing exactly when you need to take a little bit and when you need to add a little bit. The vocal layers that you're going to find throughout this entire record also add to the experience. They make them feel more powerful, they make them feel heavier, they make them feel a little bit more even emotional without necessarily having to change a lot of its natural attributes. So the vocals on this record, the vocals on any Deathwhite record, they're always one of the calling cards, and I always gravitate towards them because they just pierce through. They just pierce through your heart and they really pull at all of your heartstrings, and this record is no different. Now, I know that every new album is the band's best album, but I really have to say Grey Everlasting is the band's best album to date. And that's something to say considering that Grave Image was a phenomenal album across all of its different parameters. But this record feels a little bit more complete. If the other album was 10, this one was turned to 11. They didn't change that much, or at least it's not easy to perceive the changes that had happened from one record to the other, but you can definitely feel the growth in song composition, lyrical content, music delivery, atmosphere, emotion, overall album construction. This record just feels a little bit better, just feels a little bit more natural, a little bit more mature, a little bit more complete. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Quietly Suddenly. Very melancholic, very mellow track. It adds a great perfume to the overall song when those acoustic guitars come in. It adds to the atmosphere. It adds how the way you're going to perceive this track all around. The lower vocal range, really important to match that acoustic guitar sound, because musically the song takes these very deep dives and you need the vocals to dive with them so that you feel connected, so that the song stays balanced, so that the song stays cohesive, allowing the guitars to move the track up and down, to change the dynamic, and then the vocals follow that dynamic. The chorus has more volume, the verses are a little bit lower, the chorus is a little bit higher with more intensity, more power vocally and musically. So it's a song that moves up and down, but that movement is very gradual, is very slow, but still with great flow all around. Next you have Grey Everlasting. This is my favorite song on the entire album. It's a beautiful sound, beautiful experience, beautiful atmosphere, and the vocals deliver on top of that sound, on top of that atmosphere, on top of that incredible experience that this track has. It's haunting, it's melodic, it's somber, it's melancholic. These are all words that you can use to describe how this track comes around. The drums and guitars create the scenery, and then the vocals tell you the story of that scenery that they're creating. It's such an incredible, powerful song from beginning to end. The vocal layers add power without changing that much of the delivery, without changing the tone, without changing perceptions. It's a very complete song. The chorus is outstanding. The chorus gives you goosebumps because it becomes the highlight of the progression of the emotion that the track builds up to that specific point. And it's just drenched. It's the climax that is drenched in that personal emotion, that organic desire to just be natural and to just pour your heart out. It's an incredible, incredible deep diving song from sound and a vocal perspective. Last but not least, Immemorial. This track is very low. At least it starts very low. I really feel like you are beyond the gray at this point. You're touching the darkness. The keys, bass, drums, guitars, everything coming together, and not in a uniform way, but in a very well connected way, so you could still see all of the different pieces, and you can see what all those different pieces are doing individually and doing together, allowing the vocals to be a little bit more controlled, still powerful but more controlled, and layer at times in order to create a bigger impact. Now the song starts off in the basement, but it does move towards the first floor as you progress. So it's a track that has a sense of progression, that morphs, that grows sound-wise and vocally from start to finish. It ends very differently from where it started, and that creates movement, and in this case it's not forward movement but upwards movement. This is it. Deathwhite with Grey Everlasting, out June 10th on Season of Mist. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.